Hi, how you doing? I'm Kieran from Boxtape, and I'm going to do a mix breakdown in this video for a track called Uncontrol, which was the third and final track that I put together as a part of Andrew Huang's Learn Monthly course, and the third one was the live instruments, so the one with guitar, bass and singing. This is the first track I've ever written lyrics for and sung, so bear with me on that point. But without further ado, let's go through all the different tracks, see how all the channels came together to make the mix that you maybe have heard already, or if you haven't, then check it out, there's a link. So we're going to talk about plugins, mixing, mastering and how it all came together. Let's have a look. So this is the session. I've just loaded it up for the first time since I mixed it. I did go through and color code and give some names to these tracks because it was pretty unorganized. But yeah, we'll go through and see what makes up this track. So first of all, there's this noise pulse, sort of ducked, compressed white noise sound in the beginning. So which I think makes things breathe, which was always the idea of that effect. So to do that, I generated some white noise with a signal generator on Pro Tools. You can basically pick noise, you can render, and you get some very loud, nasty noise. And then I had it sidechain compressed, so whenever the kick or snare came in, it would duck that down. I then actually rendered it out and played with the settings a little bit because I got it how I liked it and then wanted to mix the rest of the track. So it sounds kind of like this. So yeah, just a bit of a high boost there, so it cuts through. And you can see a couple of compressors there are acting as expanders, meaning when they go above a threshold, it pushes it up. So when it breathes in, it gets louder. Okay, so obviously what we've got on this track is a big difference between the verse and the chorus. On the verse there are synth drums, and on the chorus there are real drums. It's not real drums, I'm not a drummer, it's Easy Drummer, which kind of is a plugin like this where you can program in some MIDI drums and sounds pretty epic. So the drums at the beginning, just a tapper. Battery plugin came up as a part of the course, and it's great. Just a simple ticker with compression that's not doing anything. So I guess I set up a compressor on a drum track and then just duplicated it. Bit of reverb. So that's just the ambience. So it just sounds a bit more like it's in a room, not so dry. And then don't know, can't really hear that right now, but yeah, I guess that's how it ended up during the mix. We've got the snare, which sounds really digital and affected, but it's kind of cool. And then to open up the snare, we send it to this bus. So there, we're kind of reducing the bandwidth, making it a bit more telephone-esque. Ooh, weird. Bit of a chorusy effect there from that tape machine. Our verb is the bit that you can hear most. And a compressor, which is doing very little. This gets rid of some of the tail, you can see. Towards the end it really takes it out. And a vintage exciter. This is that harmonic thing that adds high end. Cool, well that's not super interesting to listen to, is it? And we've also got a kick, of course. Okay, so just going through these and picking something that sounds okay. And the other main part of this section, of course, is this piano, washed piano, because it's washed out. So let's build that up from scratch. We've got Mini Grand, the Pro Tools freebie. Chords. And then basically 100% wet mix, so none of that dry sound at all. You're only getting the reverb signal. Then So this is a side EQ being boosted in the highs, so that nice richness is on the sides. This is Pro Q3 gives you this option of saying, do you want to affect left channel, right channel, both, or just the sides, or just the mid. Must have been a bit of a resonance there. So I just notched it out. Pretty cool. Real drums are next. So we were missing the kick there. This kick bus is fed by... Is it that as well? We've got both the synth kick and the real kick being sent to a kick bus, and then that is where we send to this other bus. So we do a bit of EQ of them together just to get a bit of thump, and then we send to this bus, and that is used to sidechain other elements of the track such that when the kick comes in, everything ducks down. Ducking. And it's a simple pattern that I just programmed in with the mouse. Okay, let's have a look. We've got synth boops. Ah, yeah, a little theme that you only really notice at the end, but then you realise it's been there in the whole track. So this is a absynth patch. Yamakard EP, electric piano. It's got a nice stereo effect. Wow, Valhalla vintage verb earning its keep. Ah, high pass. So if you use this little button, you can hear what it's cutting out. Bit of really low thump. Makes a difference if you cut that out in terms of mixing the bass end in general. And this is going to be sidechained, so if we bring everything in. So you can see when the kick comes in, it was ducking that down. And back to the wash piano. So, are we on to... Let's look at the vocals. You can see what I've done here. I've pulled out the vocal into two different tracks. So I've got kind of verse and then chorus. The reason for that was they're mixed slightly differently. Well, there's a couple of compressors on the first one, and then we've got this Shep's Omni channel. So if we just look at the processing here, and I'll let's grab a bit here. So we turn off all the faff. Okay, so the first one is just a LA to A. Really stacking the compression there just to make it sound full. And then Shep's Omnichannel, which is good just for general vocal sounds. So I guess what I'm using here, a few of the modules. So we've got a preamp with saturation, which really warms it up and just makes it sound a bit more, a bit less soft, a bit more produced in general, I suppose. Especially on something like this, which is a little bit, rocky. We've got a de-esser. Is that doing much? To work this through. Typically, I think you use a de-esser, and that lets you basically keep the high end in, because it's getting rid of the sibilance, but everything else, the richness of a voice, can really still come through, because you keep the high end in, but you just de-ess the S's. No more compression again. Yeah, and I guess it's probably because this is the first time I've recorded my voice as the lead vocal on the song. I just used loads of compression and added stuff until it sounded polished enough. We've got a bit of Kramer tape on the end for a bit more overdrive or saturation. To work this through again. Just add some noise and makes it a bit rougher. And then we've got loads of sends. So we've got a delay send, which is H delay, and you've got like a low pass and a high pass to make it a bit less pronounced. Stereo width, make it less wide, because H delay here is in ping pong, so left, right, left, right, left, right, but you don't always want it right there, right there. So stereo width, just I guess about here. Delay in your eyes, and then we're taking off even more of the highs and lows to just send it into the background a little bit more. There's a reverb sender as well, which is undoubtedly, yep, Valhalla vintage verb, and that too is EQ'd away. Time to work this through again. And I'll do some detective work to work out what the heck this is about. Main Vox bus mono, because we've got the all vocals bus here. No, I'm going to assume that's a relic of mixing, and at some point it was doing something but didn't end up being used. Vox 2 is, it's still the same vocal, but it's on the chorus. It's a bit more hefty. Staring at our hands, so there's a lot more saturation there. Yeah, so that's a bit more present. I would say that prior to these being put into these tracks right here, the raw performances, I did oodles of takes, maybe 8 to 10 different takes of each line, and then comped it together and picked the best bits. Yes, those were the best bits. And then put it through Melodyne for tuning. It's been quite heavily edited. But I need it. Can't help and on some parts of this, I think the vocal is a little quiet. The course was pretty hectic in terms of the schedule, the timeline, and this track was particularly hard in terms of coming up with a lyrical theme and writing everything, for me, who doesn't do that often. So I think if I went back, I'd probably automate some of those softer lines up a bit, even with the 3 compressors. I think the overall level always wants tuning if you're doing a proper release for a track. Okay, we've also got harmonies, of course. Let's have a listen to what those do. BV bus. So we've got 4 harmonies. Those are not there on the first chorus, so that's variation between the choruses. The first one doesn't have them, and then they kick in a bit later. Staring at our hands. A little bit folky. A little bit spooky. All you did is end, all you are an echo in reverse, but the wound's still here. When it changed so fast forever. Other track. The fear locked away. You could piece a life together. Subtle. So proud for you, please be okay. Wish I could have known you. So the BVs are a bit more simply treated. We've got something to make them a bit more backgroundy. Obviously we don't want much low end on any of these. The first 2 have been EQ'd prior, as I say, to editing. And then we've got, quite a simple compressor, just the one. Or we've got 2 compressors. So that's probably ducking. No? That's just another compressor. There we are. That's how that came together. And now we have guitar. Do like me a bit of guitar. Common mistake would be to use loads of gain for a big chunky guitar. Really what you want to do is stack multiple takes that are fairly in time, but not necessarily spot bollock on. And don't use too much gain, really. Wow, dodgy edit there, but it's on a hit, so you don't notice it. That was a good trick I learnt. Lovely. So this goes to the guitar bus here, which does have the ducking with the kick. Which really helps with the power of it all, along with the bass. So there's a bass on the chorus. Grimy. So guitar rig I used on all of these. The guitar or the bass would plug straight into the interface, and guitar rig, pretty good for this. That's pretty cool and chunky, and that ducked as well, of course, to the kick. The plugin settings for guitar rig. Ooh. Yeah, Marshall-esque. let's see what it was. Clearly I tried something before that, so... bit sharper. Yeah, metal zone pedal, Boss metal zone pedal. Transistor amp, so a bit more... yeah, harsher, sort of dime bag, that kind of thing. Ooh, completely different, isn't it? Yeah, that's lost. Yeah, it really needed to fill that slightly lower space in the spectrum. Simple H delay. I probably used too many delays. Wow, that's lasting a long time. But it gives that sort of sense of space. And here's another friend, so... so this plays with the synth. This and the synth boots are doing the same thing. Let's put them together. Yeah, so that guitar drops out, making room for the big guitars. Pretty similar, I imagine. Completely different amp. Bit of a fizz on it, isn't there? Can hear all the timing errors. Good idea, this one. So multiband compression, and something is ducking this out. It's the main Vox bus. Mystery solved, that main Vox bus. So when the vocal comes in, it takes out the mids of that guitar. I didn't even notice. I wonder if you did. It's a great trick if you can sort of inaudibly, without feeling like it's or anyone noticing it's affecting the tone too much, duck out some of those mids to make room for vocals. I wonder if there's anything else on this main bit. It would look like it, but perhaps it's either not set up correctly or we didn't need it there. Let's try that, see what happens. Let's finish mixing this track. Actually, I think it takes out too much power. I think we will leave that off. Well done by chance, past Kieran. And I think that is it in terms of the individual tracks. No, of course not. Of course not. We have the bridge. Marshall amp. Sim. But we've also got this clean one. It wasn't sounding interesting enough. I remember adding this, so if we go into it without, and then I'll bring this one in. And bring it in now. I'm in two minds, actually. I don't mind it. It rounds it out, certainly, but it was quite nice when it really became a bit more minimal. It needs the jigger. There we are. So, just quickly, let's have a look at the master bus and what I've got there. Learnt quite a lot from Andrew Huang's tuition on this one. Namely, put a boost in your bass. I kind of figured, wow, that's a bit bold on a master bus, but he says, yeah, pretty much a rule of thumb. Give it a go. So here it's 60 hertz. I don't remember, did you say 60 hertz? Seems quite low. Anyway, that worked out quite nicely. Let's build up this master bus and see what happens. vitamin. The Richener. I'm going to put this compressor on because it's the voiceover bit. SSL comp, just general mastering glue. Usually keep it at about that range. And a metering plugin, which I usually look at. Short-term or integral, and LUFS as a loudness meter. -14 about. And then to adjust that, I've got this Ultra Maximizer, which is basically a limiter, but multiband. It's supposed to be more transparent. And something that Andrew Huang mentioned was he drives his limiter until it distorts and then backs it off a bit so it's as loud as possible. Yeah, I don't know. So hard. So something anyone watching can help me with. I dread guides that, like YouTube, Spotify and so on, normalise all the tracks to about -14 LUFS. And so I'd been aiming for that with occasional peaks higher, or maybe the average was -14, which is way different, for example, than Mr. Huang. And yeah, I'm a bit lost on that one because clearly I could drive that track way more, way harder. And it still sounded okay. I guess it's because it's not a very dynamic genre in terms of dynamics on audio. Yeah, so let me know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If there's any more questions about this track or anything I didn't explain very well, please leave a comment and I will address said comment in the comments. Leave a comment. So there were a couple of other tracks that I did on the course that are in the video that would be linked already, that maybe you've already watched and you've come from. If you'd like to see a breakdown of either of those, as you can see, this is song 3 as it was called until right at the last minute when I had to think of something and submit it. Songs 1 and 2, if you want a breakdown of those, I'll be happy to do that and share my dirty secrets about skipping over things, making the session a mess, but ultimately coming up with something that I was satisfied with and came together nicely. So there we are. I think that's it. Thanks very much for watching. Really appreciate it. If you've got any suggestions for me, suggestions for videos, suggestions for what I could have done better, any comments, questions, you know what to do. Thanks very much. See you again. Bye.